It's only the second race of the season, and it looks like there is some controversy brewing down at Ferrari with regards to the team order situation in the Chinese Grand Prix.
This is a shame. The place is
Well done. I'm sorry about that.
That is what the Formula One main feed would have you believe, and it's an agenda created to cause controversy and hype up a rift between the drivers and the team already. But I'm here to tell you that was not the case, and in fact what was broadcast and shown to us is not what was transpiring behind the scenes with the two drivers and the teams respectively. But it was actually Lewis Hamilton that first relayed his wish to swap the drivers around, because he could quite clearly see, even with the broken ring, that Leclerc was quicker than him and he was struggling. So as we saw at the beginning of the Grand Prix, Lewis Hamilton and Charles Leclerc on the first lap came together, and it resulted in Leclerc losing the left-hand side front wing end plate of his car. Now, it became quite clear that today it was a change of fortunes for the two Ferrari drivers. With even Leclerc's loss of a front wing end plate, he was far and away clearly quicker than that of Lewis Hamilton throughout the race. And there was a moment in the Formula One broadcast that it seemed that Ferrari had intended to make a switch of the two drivers to try and have Leclerc go and chase down the top three drivers. Now, this is where things really annoy me, and it's like they're just trying to cause and stir up controversy between the two drivers and the teams. And I suspect a lot of this is to do with Netflix's Drive to Survive series. I think if there cameras were there, which I do not know if they were, but they could still use footage from the race in one of the episodes, probably the Ferrari highlight episode. They want to cause some controversy, and that's the agenda they had on their mind. But it was actually Lewis Hamilton that first relayed his wish to swap the drivers around, because he could quite clearly see, even with the broken ring, that Leclerc was quicker than him and he was struggling.
You had to tell the drivers to swap positions, and he wasn't too happy, Lewis Hamilton. I don't know if you've had a word with him?
Not really, because the first call came from Lewis. He proposed to swap, that you have to listen to the full story. Lewis proposed to swap, and then he picked up a little bit the pace, and he swapped, and it's not an issue at all.
But what was actually true of the Formula One broadcast was that Hamilton was getting agitated with the team telling him when, and actually more to the point, precisely where this switching of the drivers would take place. Hamilton actually wanted to be the one to dictate when and where it would happen.
We want to swap this lap, swap now.
I'll tell you when we're going to swap.
Unlike how Ferrari normally do things, as we've seen in the past couple of seasons, they say where they want the overtake to happen, and we get a long-winded play out of science essentially not wanting to do the switch. But yeah, this time it was Lewis. He himself was the one that said and suggested the switch. Ferrari took a little bit of time to decide and to actually do that. And then they were coming on the radio to suggest where and when that would happen. Now, at one point in this particular issue, Hamilton started to catch George Russell quite considerably, and I think that then made him change his idea for a small period of time with regarding when he would want to make the change and where, because he could quite clearly see there is a position to potentially be had. And you could hear it in the team radio that was broadcast on the main feed, that he was like saying, when Leclerc gets close to me, I'll let him through.
We are swapping cars, 14.
When he's closer, yes.
And that is very much Hamilton's MO when it comes to switching of teammates. It's what he did in Mercedes when they asked them to switch the teammates with him, whether it was Rosberg or Bottas or Russell. He always would say, if they're close enough, I will let them through. And he always stayed true to his word. And that's essentially what happened today. But with the added difficulties of the fact that he and Leclerc were catching Russell at the time. But the overtake or the switching of positions did come into play, and it did happen. And it happened at the first corner in the long right-hand sequence on the opening of a lap around the Shanghai International Circuit. And from then on, it was a case of Leclerc driving off into the distance, and the teams eventually switched the drivers from both being on, I suspect, a 1-stop to then Lewis going on to a 2-stop because of the fact of Max Verstappen was very much quickly closing in on him. And as we all saw, he ended up overtaking both Ferrari drivers to end up in 4th position. So that is the second issue of the race as well. It was really a race from Ferrari which was a little bit of a disappointment, especially considering what they managed to achieve in the shortened 19-lap sprint race on Saturday. I think the added 1 psi pressure for the front tyres from Saturday into Sunday had quite a bearing on the overall performance of the Ferrari, and especially, more to the point, Lewis Hamilton. And that's what put us in this situation of a driver swap potentially being on the cards, and then of course it being executed by the 2 drivers in the middle of the race. And yeah, it's just again something the team with Hamilton are having to get used to with one another, how they work, how they operate on a Formula One race weekend, how they like to communicate, how they like to do things and plan strategy-wise, driver swap-wise, and all of the other variables that come into play on a Formula One weekend. But yeah, it was really quite annoying to see how this was all being portrayed to us on the initial broadcast when it was first happening. It seemed like Hamilton was going against the Ferrari team orders. Oh my God, Hamilton is now not listening to the team in the second race in his time at Ferrari, and basically looking for engagement, looking for clicks, looking for a story that was never there. And that's what it was about. But yeah, I think it was overall a very disappointing end to the weekend. The team didn't really have pace for anything really in the race. They essentially were in a no man's land regarding the pace in the main race today. I think there's a lot of work in Maranello to be done, and there is talk of a potential upgrade coming very, very soon, because they are obviously quite clearly not happy with how the car is performing in its current spec, essentially. Now, what that upgrade is going to be, I don't know. I'm sure Auto Racer will give us a little bit of an inkling at maybe some point in the week, and we can just discuss and go from there. But yeah, let me know what you thought of this whole situation with how the broadcast portrayed the switching of Hamilton and Leclerc, because I thought it was a load of rubbish, to be perfectly honest with you. Anyway guys, I'm going to wrap this video up here. Hope you've all enjoyed it. If you have, of course, do leave a like on the video, subscribe if you're new, and turn on notifications for all future Formula One content here on F1 Unraveled. Right guys, I'll catch you all later with some more Formula One videos. See you soon.